Hey, welcome back to the Healthy Living Scottsdale podcast. I am your host, Coach Zach. I'm here with Coach Zach, ZK, and sweet as candy, Miss Brandy.
Hi, everyone.
What's going on?
Not much.
Zach and Zach.
Yep.
We're back.
All day today, too.
Ready to attack.
Oh, jeez.
Did you go by Zach Attack when you were...
No.
Nobody ever called you that?
Like maybe like people have called me just like as a joke, like you just did, but like not like that wasn't like
Not a nickname?
No.
Zach Attack.
Probably because it sounds dumb. So
I
don't
got
like
that
it.
all the time. All the time.
No.
No? All right. I also got Columbo, I guess, because my last name's Columbo.
Yeah, I
Everybody
could see
called me
that.
Columbo. So I don't know. That's not, as cool as Zach Attack, I guess. All right. How you guys doing?
Good.
Good.
Podcasting. You ready for this?
Yes,
You want to go
sir.
client of the week first?
Yep.
First things first, or are we going to give it a little drum roll? Let's go with Michael Sorum for this week's client of the week. Mike puts a new meaning to just do chest and forget the rest. all he wants to do is chest
Yep.
and buys. Yeah.
Yeah. He finds a way to. The days he doesn't come always happens to be our lower body days. Every time. Just today was a perfect example. He missed yesterday.
Yeah.
And he came. He's like, "Oh, it's arm day." I was like, "Yeah, Mike, it's upper body day."
To be fair, he did have his foot stepped on by a horse. His toe was like
Yeah, but-
ginormous. So, but all the other, 500 leg days before that, he also wanted to skip out on those. But he didn't. He doesn't. He does legs too, but he's actually incredibly ripped. I mean, he's in his late 50s, I think, and he's jacked. So kudos to him. And he drinks tons of wine every night. So you shouldn't, I guess probably shouldn't tell the members that, because then they'll be like, all I got to do is chest and drink wine and I'll be fine.
That's the formula.
That's the formula. That's
Be
the
just like Mike.
Yeah, just be like Mike, like Mike. All right, you guys want to dive into this topic for today? Brandy's like, no.
Let's dive in.
Brandy wasn't supposed to be on this episode today, so she's not prepared. It's supposed to be CJ, but he's not feeling well.
I don't have my notes today.
Yeah,
You don't
she's always prepared. So.
That's what I heard about her. So, all right, we're talking about perceived effort. So, one thing that I guess I shouldn't say drives me crazy, but I guess I find it somewhat obnoxious, just because there's a lack of listening, I guess, to what we say. But one thing that our clients will bring up frequently is that they love metabolic workouts when we do like HIIT workouts, and we build those into the program with intention. And typically like Wednesdays and Saturdays we'll have the option, if it makes sense for the client, to do a metabolic workout. And clients always love those workouts. The ones that love them, right?
Yeah.
And the ones that, and they love those workouts, and the people that love them are like, yes, this is what I need. They always say that, like, I need more of that, right? Yeah. And I'm like, no, you don't. Like, you want more of that. Like, you enjoy it. You enjoy the endorphins of it. You enjoy the perceived effort of it. But that's not necessarily what you need, at least not entirely. Right? And so there's this, I guess, this misunderstanding that exists. There's different energy systems in the body, based on what type of activity you're doing. You're tapping into different energy systems. What are those energy systems, Zach? Our little our college student.
The first one is the phosphagen system, which is like the shortest, highest intensity system, which is like if you're going to do a sprint, that's what you're predominantly using because it only lasts. So it's the highest intensity, recruits like the fastest twitch fibers, but they fatigue the quickest because they work the hardest, exert the most amount of energy. The middle one is glycolytic, which kind of ranges, but it usually caps out at like 3 minutes. And then anything after that is the oxidative system, which is 3 minutes and on. So like marathon runners, all that, they all primarily use that. You realistically use all of them all at once, like no matter what you're doing, but certain ones, of course, are more heavily reliant on depending on what you're doing. So those are the three in order from like shortest duration. The longest duration is phosphagen, glycolytic, and oxidative.
Yeah. And so if I'm doing like a HIIT style workout, most likely like what energy system am I using?
The first one and the first two.
The first two.
The first one, if you go like base per exercise or whatever you're doing,
yeah,
then obviously like the amount of time you're actually working. Sure, like if you have an AMRAP that's 30 minutes, it's not like
you're not
30-minute run. Like, it's not the same thing. It's in spurts. Like so yeah, predominantly the first one, definitely like within each exercise, but then the first two for sure.
And which one am I going to feel the most?
The first one.
The first one. So because I'm getting up and like moving really, really fast, I'm basically draining my whole entire body I'm stressing, like I'm putting more stress on my systems to be able to sustain energy. That's going to increase my heart rate, and I'm going to use more oxygen. And so I'm going to be out of breath, and I'm going to be really, really fatigued. Right. I can only do that for 10 to 30 seconds, right? If I'm doing it correctly. So what is the benefit outside of developing that energy system? So maybe I'm at 10 seconds and then I can get to 15 seconds and I can get to 20 seconds. Outside of developing that energy system, like what's the benefit for the client of training in a environment where I'm requiring phosphagen?
You asking me?
Yeah.
It's just going to stretch like your anaerobic capacity. So like aerobic capacity is long distance cardio, stuff like that. But your anaerobic is without oxygen because you're working such a short period of time, such a high intensity that your body doesn't like recruit like oxygen be used. Okay, that sounds different. It makes it seem like you're not using oxygen, which is not what I mean. But it's
chemically.
Right, yeah. Anaerobically, there's no oxygen present. So it just stretches your capacity to do that. So like even people who do exercise or sports in long duration who don't utilize like that energy system, it's still super helpful for them to train all three of them because it just stretches your heart's capability and lung capacity, all that stuff to be able to produce and like withstand at a high speeds, high time periods for the shortest amount of time. And it's the most efficient. So like you can get a whole lot of work seemingly in a short period of time compared to if you were jogging for 20 minutes, you would feel like you weren't working equivalently difficult as opposed to intervals.
Now, the magic question that I have for you is, does that happen in a set of lifting, of doing a bench press for 12 reps to failure, to fatigue?
If you do it correctly, if the intensity level is high enough, yeah.
If you're lifting heavy enough, right?
Right.
So I'm using the same system, energy system, basically. If I'm doing it correctly, I'm using the same energy system in a set of lifting weights as I would be if I just took off sprinting and I ran as hard as I could for 20 seconds.
Correct. Yeah. That's why we try to get people to get to that correct intensity level, which is often like the correct weight and stuff like that, because people feel like they're not working as hard because you're not at that correct intensity level. Yeah.
So the perceived effort is, I guess, like maybe that's a deceiving term, because you should, when you finish a set, be just as taxed as if you just sprinted, right? And
right.
did a sprint for 20 seconds.
Right.
Right. And so what is it that people don't lift enough weight? Like they're afraid to push themselves, and so they're not tapping into those energy systems, so then they don't get enough out of it? Is that kind of what you think is the disconnect?
Yeah, I like my answer was going to be like fear. Like people are scared to lift whatever weight. They think it's unsafe or they think whatever. They just can't do it. So like the easiest way to tell that our clients aren't working hard enough is the rest period. Most of our clients just jump from one exercise right to the other. And like me and CJ have like joked about it because like if anybody like Brandy trains her clients at 1 when me and CJ work out. If anybody like watched us work out, we rest like 4 times more than all of our clients because like, I gotta rest like after it. And if you don't, then that shows. Yeah, we're not working hard enough within the set to where we can just immediately jump right to the next thing.
Yeah, and that's because you're doing it correctly.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Right? So I guess in a like a HIIT workout, right? Because our clients love that. They're like, this is what I need. And we're like, no, that's not what you need. Like you need to be strength training. And as your body, because strength training is really, it's like going to school, right? You can never learn enough. Like your body can never get good enough at it. But the goal is for you to continually to progress and get more proficient at performing each of the movements, and then you continue to challenge yourself by increasing the reps, the load, the tempo, changing the tempo, like whatever, right?
Right.
And so by lifting weights, you should be able to achieve the same fatigue, right? That you would achieve just by going out and like sprinting. However, our clients typically, like because there's such a huge learning curve when it comes to weight training, and that's what they need, not just for the energy system development, but for strength, for muscle development, for bone density, for overall functional just movement day to day. Like all of those things are important. But as far as like the HIIT workout, why is that so much easier for the client to perceive as like, oh, I'm putting out a lot of effort and this feels like I'm working way harder than when I'm doing it during a training session?
Possibly because they can get to that feeling of exhaustion or, bringing on a sweat quicker in a HIIT workout or in, that 30 seconds of doing burpees than they are getting when they're lifting weights. But they could get that lifting weights if they were using heavier weights and going with more intensity. So you could have that same feeling when you're done with a set as you did with 30 seconds of burpees if you're, going with as much intensity as you used for those burpees.
A sprint is a lot less technical. Like there's a lot less risk of me hurting myself. There's a lot less that my body has to figure out because it already knows how to do that.
Right.
So I can easily go out and sprint or do burpees or do squats or air squats or whatever than like the learning curve that's required for me to
do a heavier
lift that's more technical, where I could hurt myself if I do it wrong, and like finding the appropriate weight that's going to get me to that same
I think it's
level.
getting people out of their comfort zone when they're lifting weights, because I think people tend to stick to whatever lift they're doing, tend to stick to the same amount of weight for those lifts rather than pushing themselves, going for the heavier dumbbells, slowing it down, changing the tempo. Instead, we'll stick to what they know or what they're comfortable with rather than pushing it.
Yeah.
I would say also as for why it seems like so much harder is because it's because of the structure of like a HIIT type workout, like our Wednesday type workout, you're gonna hit that feeling regardless. Cause the way I structure it is just the most creative way to get them really, really tired quickly. So I structure all the workouts to where even if they wanted to, they couldn't not reach that end. Short of just resting the whole time and not actually going through the movements, it's not dependent on their own, how much output they put into it. They're going to be tired anyway. So 30 battle rope slams are going to be hard no matter how you choose to do them. So versus if you do 8 reps of whatever exercise, it's so dependent on how they choose to go through the movement, where the way I would structure any metabolic workout, it's not up to them. They're gonna reach that level anyway of fatigue. So it's not it doesn't matter like how they choose to do it. They're going to hit that point regardless, even if they want to or not.
We're big on ball slams, right? We use ball slams all the time. I kind of equate that to like digging a hole. So it's not technical at all. It's just work. Right. And so you're not necessarily improving any part of your life, like your quality of life, outside of just taxing that metabolic system. That's really all you're doing. So there's nothing that your body's learning how to do that necessarily is going to translate into, hey, I'm going to feel better. I'm going to have, I'm going to be more resilient to injury if somebody runs into me or something like that. All it is like, okay, we're just training the metabolic system. Right. And so the focus is different, right? And so that's really the thing, right, is when it comes to perceived effort and the client is saying like, oh, I love this type of workout. It's like, yes, but you can't only do that type of workout. And again, kind of going back to every single episode that we do, we always talk about like, why, what are you trying to accomplish? Is it fat loss? Are you trying to gain skeletal muscle mass? Is it like aesthetic based? Is it performance based? Like, do we want to get better at like running? Do we want to get better at sprinting? Like, what is it that we're trying to accomplish? And that's going to dictate like how we form your training program. Right. And just like when we're doing any type of exercise, we're really kind of using all three of those energy systems. We have to incorporate different types of training in order to achieve this, basically like the result that the client wants, right? It's not like you can just do metabolic training. You can't just do weight training and you can't just lift heavy and then rest 5 minutes and then expect to be able to just go run a 5-minute mile. Right. Like there's some of it that's going to translate, but not all of it. Right. Right. And so the reason we structure our workouts is because we're talking about a lifestyle. If somebody is going to train like balls to the wall in high intensity interval training, you cannot do that 3, 4, 5 days a week and have it be sustainable long term. Like your body's going to break down. You're going to get hurt. Hormonally, like it's going to put too much stress on the body. Like it's not a good sustainable plan. Right. You can do it once a week. Perfect. You can do it twice a week. Perfect. But that's not like, I probably wouldn't suggest you do it more than that if you're planning on doing that every day for the rest of your life, or 4 times, working out 4 times a week for the rest of your life. You need a combination of strength training and some metabolic training in order to continue to progress and not plateau.
Yeah, and like if you just look at it like logically, like within those like HIIT workouts, you work for a very short duration and then you rest significantly. So like it's the same way for like why you can't do it every day of the week, because you shouldn't be able to. You can't do like that type of workout. You couldn't do 40 minutes of intervals, otherwise you wouldn't actually be working at the like optimum intensity level. So like for the same reason that within the workout it's short like work durations and long rest durations, it's the same reason you can't do it multiple times a week, because you need to do it once and then you got to rest multiple days before you can do it properly again. Because if you could do it 4 days, 5 days a week, then it just means you weren't actually doing like legitimate intervals, because you should have to rest significantly.
Yeah, and we talked about Mike at the beginning of the episode, like Mr. I just want to do chest and forget the rest. Like doing metabolic training every day would be like doing chest every single day. Mm-hmm. Like eventually that muscle is going to be overworked. Like, yeah, you're going to see results from that for a few weeks, right? And then that muscle is going to become fatigued, overworked. You may or may not get injured, but even if you don't get injured, what's going to happen is those muscle fibers aren't going to tear and you're going to get weaker. Right. And so the same, that would be kind of the way I would explain it to somebody if they're saying like, yeah, I just want to do metabolic. Like I need to do more of this. It's like, No, there's a reason why we'll do upper body workout one day and then a lower body workout the next day.
Yeah.
Or we'll do like upper pushing motions and lower pulling motions. And then the next time you come in, we're going to do the opposite of that, right? Vice versa. So it's all planned out. It's all systematic. There's a lot of thought process that goes into it. And you can't just say like, I love doing this, I'm going to do it all the time, right? Too much of a good thing is not a good thing.
Right.
And that's really what it's about.
Yeah, and you see that a lot with runners too, especially long distance runners. If they're just running and they're only training, for their run, their long distance run, they'll see progress at first, they'll improve, but then they'll get to a point where they will plateau if that's all that they're doing, and their pace even may slow down, may decrease. If you incorporate strength training with that, then all of a sudden you're going to see improvements in pace, improvements in the run. So it's incorporating that endurance training with the strength training, and you'll see incredible results. So that's just one example of how strength training combined with like a metabolic style workout will improve overall athletic ability and performance.
Yeah.
I think the biggest, it's all just because like misinformation or like believing something, like, cause like I'm sure the biggest reason tons of our clients think they just need to do more and more and more of the metabolic stuff is because they think it's like they're burning so much fat versus like a weightlifting thing. So like the most of it, I feel like, is just derived from misinformation, thinking it does something for you that it doesn't, which is also why you just need to believe us and listen to what we would structure the way it is for a reason. Because I think the big part about all of our metabolic stuff is that after you finish, it feels like you accomplished more than like a weightlifting session, because there's less rest like intermittently throughout. So by the time you're done, you're like, oh, I finally finished like whatever 35 minutes straight of whatever you were doing, versus a like semi-private training where it's just lifting for 35 minutes where you had rest implemented within each single one after a working set. So it just feels like, oh, I had to have burned more fat because I worked this whole time.
It's that perceived effort. Mm-hmm. It's the perception because I'm out of breath. I think I equate being out of breath and sweaty to fat loss.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I just burned so many calories. And it's like, probably not. Actually, like you probably are going to burn more calories in the next 24 hours from doing a heavy, slow, like lifting session than from that super fast paced metabolic workout. Like, yes, you felt like you were working harder, but physiologically after your workout's over, you're continuing to burn more calories because your body needs that nutrients to grow and to repair the damage that you've done to it. And there have actually been quite a few studies done on like metabolic, like HIIT training, steady state cardio versus like strength training long term. What like doing just one of those, which one results in the greatest fat loss? Mm-hmm. And it's the weight training, right? Because the amount of calories that you're burning all the time continues to increase and increase and increase. And so it's working for you 24/7. Right. It's not over once the workout is over.
Right.
So, I mean, the feedback loop sometimes is just a little bit deceitful, because being out of breath does not necessarily mean that, hey, you just lost fat. It's the wrong perception. So that's all I got for you guys. So, I mean, Zach's right. Just, do what we tell you, and you'll do what we tell you and you'll get results. You really don't, we're the mechanics and you're bringing your car to us. We're the body mechanics. You're bringing your body to us.
You don't have to like think about all the like minute details. Like we did that already. There's a reason like it's set up the way it is. So just like trust what we're telling you. Like there is a reason behind it.
Yeah. So lots of schooling going on. It's not like we just learned this over a 3-day weekend in the Yucca room at the Holiday Inn Express. It's like years of education. So, and really, I wish that was the perception that people had as like, hey, kind of doctor here, just of a different type of medicine, right? Movement is medicine. So that's all I got for you guys. You got anything else? You guys are gonna blow this outro, aren't you?
Yeah,
you are.
For sure.
I knew it. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll be back with you next week with more great stuff. Thank you so much for listening to the Healthy Living Scottsdale podcast. Do you have a question that you'd like for us to answer live on the podcast? If so, all you need to do is head over to the Apple Podcast app on your iPhone and do 3 simple things. First, leave us a rating and review telling me what you think of the podcast. In that review, ask anything you want related to health, fitness, or nutrition. And if you want a shout out, leave us your Instagram handle or name. That's all you have to do. Then listen to hear your questions answered live on the next Q&A episode.